Story time. I'm going to talk about things that I've never talked about publicly before, but I feel like it's needed of context. So I haven't been able to work for over 10 years, not proper job anyway. Skimming over a lot of things. I have a collapsing spine, I was forced out of work, depression followed. I was told I would never be able to dance again. I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand for very long, but worse than that, I couldn't sit for more than 20 minutes without being in chronic pain, hence why I couldn't have an office job. So I was forced out of work, and then a few months later, my best friend messaged me on my birthday to tell me that he was dying. I moved in with him and became his carer, looked after him, and then one night he killed himself, and I found him in the bathtub. And that completely destroyed me as a person, and I was still living in the house after he died, and it was a basement flat, not much light. I didn't open the curtains for years. Very depressed, to the point of almost killing myself. Therapy and medication helped, and then in 2015 I met my now husband, Ken, and my life changed completely. He gave me my confidence back, which I can never thank him enough for that. And in 2017, I wrote and produced and directed a musical called Blink of an Eye, which was performed in London. And that was amazing, and had never written a musical before. It was really hard, but it was brilliant. In 2018 I got married, and in 2019 I wrote my first book, which was published in October 2019. And then COVID happened. So the book tour and everything that was meant to happen in 2020 didn't happen. My book kind of just sat there, and so we're still in this awful basement flat in central London with no light, which was kind of bearable when you could go outside, but then when you're stuck inside for 14 months, it became horrible. So I wasn't great mentally back in 2020. Many people weren't. And I wrote my second book in 2021, The Correct Reflection, and then we moved here to our house in Surrey. So we bought a house, and it's beautiful being in suburbia. We love it here. And then last year, during COVID, I was fine just being a writer. I used to be an actor years ago, and I gave it up because I needed food to be able to eat. And unfortunately, being an actor in London means you're going to be unemployed most of the time. And I wasn't earning any money. I think like £4,500 a year. You can't live on that. So I gave it up and just became writer. But during COVID, I was like, I really, really want to get back onto the stage. And I'd come up with this idea while we're in lockdown. For the beginning of what is now Blink, and I wrote it on my phone. Actually, I was sitting on the sofa and wrote it into my phone on Notepad, but I couldn't get rid of this idea. I really wanted to do it. And then last year, 2022, I said to Ken, my husband, I said, I'm going to take it to Edinburgh Fringe. Now, I'd never been to Edinburgh Fringe before. I hadn't performed on stage in 15 years. I'd never written a one-man show before. And I'd never performed on stage on my own before. But I knew it was something I had to do. And I was actually really nervous about doing it, and I forced myself to do it. And it all stemmed from me not being able to sleep. I was having massive trouble sleeping, and then I'd wake up every morning and cry because I felt like I'd lost my life during the lockdown. I felt like I'd released my book, and that was meant to be the catalyst to everything to come after it. But because of COVID, the book didn't do anything. I mean, the book's done a lot better now. It's called Refraction, if you want to check it out. That was not meant to be an advert. But anyway, and I woke up every morning in January 2022 and cried. And Ken would come into the room and we'd hug, and I'm like, I just felt like I'd lost my life because things hadn't gone. We'd lost so much time, basically. And so that's why last year, right, I'm going to do Edinburgh Fringe. But we'd also bought this house. So I decided I was going to do Edinburgh Fringe. All I had was that one scene on my phone. I booked the theatre, at the end of January or beginning of February, I don't remember now, last year, and then we had to do the house up. And so I would be here 5 days a week, which is like a 90-minute journey from where we used to live. And I'd come, and I've never done DIY or anything like before, watching YouTube videos and finding out how to put plaster on walls and things like that. And yeah, I did it all, and we've got it in the colours that we want, which nobody else would have. This is my office at the moment. Orange, of course, why not? And yeah, so while doing that, and then we moved in, I want to say end of April or beginning of May last year, and then I had to write the script. So, and by this point, the posters have been, I made my own posters because I was trying to save money, because it was costing so much to go to Edinburgh in the first place. I think in total it cost £6,000 to do 11 days in Edinburgh Fringe, because the accommodation is so expensive. But then you've got your travel, you've got your eating while you're there, you've got the posters, the marketing and flyers, and just so much money spent out. But yeah, so then I had to write the script, and then I wrote the script, and then I had to learn it all, and I found it really difficult to learn, because again, it's been 15 years since I've done this, and not only am I doing this, I'm doing this on my own. So I don't have another actor to spar from. I don't have somebody else. I don't say like, hi, how are you? And then they say something. It's just me on stage for an hour talking. And I didn't have music cues. I didn't have lighting cues. I had nothing to guide me except for my own brain. And it was terrifying. That first day was terrifying. Thankfully, it went all right. And I got the audience loved it. So every single day after the show, I had people queuing up outside to thank me, hug me. Some were crying, just to say how amazing it was. The audience loved it, but the critics were critical, as they usually are. But I took every single point. I read them all, and I've listened to every single point, and the things I agreed with, I've changed. So things that didn't work, when you're on stage, you know, if people aren't laughing, you know that that's not working. And so I've changed the script. It's the same story, just now written differently. And yeah, so coming from a point where 10 years ago I couldn't work, and I've had so many different surgeries and things on my back, and I've seen so many different specialists and different drug combinations and stuff, and I can walk now. I don't have much pain anymore, and yes, my spine is still collapsing, and at some point I won't be able to move, but that's not today, and I am going to keep going until I can't keep going anymore. And this positive attitude, honestly, it changed my life. So yeah, so from 10 years ago when I couldn't work, to the loss of my best friend, to all the crap I went through in the past, to where I am today, which is I have just received this box. Just received this box, and this, inside here are the flyers, and I presume the posters for Blink, which I'm performing in London in August at Camden Fringe, and Colchester in October. And I'm so happy I'm here at this point in my life, because I never thought I would get to this point in my life. And I suppose I wanted to make this video to say never, ever, ever give up, because you never know what the future's going to hold. And yeah, it might be the worst time of your entire life, and you may feel like giving up, but don't do it. Don't give in. Just keep pushing and keep going, because it's always worth it.